Hi, everybody, and welcome into another SunDevilSource series recap. I'm Ethan Tuttle, joined alongside Cole Bradley. Cole, we're here at Phoenix Municipal Stadium following Arizona State's 12-10 victory over the Oregon State Beavers. Second win of the series, so they captured 2 out of 3. They get the series win. They're 27-12 overall, 13-4 in conference play, tied for first atop the Pac-12 standings. Cole, the Sun Devils had to battle back once again in this one. What have you seen from ASU in the batter's box, kind of having to make these late comebacks against teams so far this season? They had their 16th comeback win of the season today.
Yeah, it's been crazy to watch how everything unfolds in games like this where it's so back and forth and ASU gets down to a pretty significant early lead, or deficit, I should say, and has to recover from it. And just when the game feels like it's over and all the energy has been sucked out of the place, they just find a way to battle back, and that was prevalent throughout this series. Even in the first game that they lost, they drew the score within 2 in a 13-11 loss to the Beavers. Yesterday, they go out and have the walk-off grand slam from Isaiah Jackson to sort of even the series in an 11-7 win. Today, they erased deficits of 5 runs and 4 runs respectively, and it made it that much more impressive. This team just fights. It has a lot of fight. They string together really quality and consistent at-bats, and they're able to put guys on, move them over, and get them in. It's manufacturing runs. It's getting base hits. It's the homers, doubles, whatever it is. I mean, everything's clicking for this offense, and it's always clicking when they need it most. And that's a very significant thing for a team that last year had such an explosive offense, but wasn't as good at really stringing together these late surges and, propelling themselves back into games. And they weren't helped by the fact that the pitching wasn't great, but it just feels different this year, Ethan. And especially going up against your toughest test of the season in Oregon State that entered the series having won 7 straight. They claimed a series victory, took 2 out of 3 at Oregon, and then they swept USC last weekend. This is a team that is very scrappy and hard to beat and hard to put away. And they also have an incredible pitching staff, one of the best bullpens in the Pac-12. They had only allowed 4 runs in the 9th inning all year entering yesterday. They gave up 4 on one swing of the bat from Isaiah Jackson to end it. Those are the kind of things that are just telling of how good this offense has been and how crucial it has been in their winning stretch so far.
Yeah, Arizona State 15-3 in games decided by 3 runs or less. So like you said, to your point, Cole, I mean, they're doing a good job down the stretch, coming back and making those late surges. But they've had to make those late surges because pitching, and starting pitching specifically, has struggled at times for the Sun Devils so far throughout the season. So what have you seen from that, and what do you think could improve for the starting pitching for Arizona State as they move ahead?
Well, looking at what happened on Friday, Ross Dunn, over his last 2 outings in particular, hasn't been great. He's walked a lot of batters. He's had no fastball control, and he's spiraled out of control very, very quickly. And it's led to a couple of pretty significant losses each of the last 2 Fridays. And Willie Bloomquist hinted at a potential change in the Friday night role following the game. Is that going to happen? Maybe not. There's something to be said about keeping guys in their routine and not trying to throw everything out of whack, especially when you're this deep into the season and everything is, there's been a lot going your way so far. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? So, but this is very critical for ASU if they do decide to make that change. Their best starting pitcher has been Christian Curtis by far, and even though the box score didn't reflect it on Saturday, he did pitch pretty well. He had extended innings where he had to throw additional pitches, but he did a really good job, and I think if they did decide to make a change on Fridays, it would be Curtis who they would go to. Now, that would kind of throw things out of whack on Saturdays and Sundays. They might try and do a bullpen game one of those days. They might try and have Ross Dunn be pushed back to the Saturday or Sunday role. Who knows? If they decide not to make a change, I won't be surprised. I don't think anyone will be. But at the same time, it's just been kind of concerning to see how this team has unraveled on the mound a little bit against tougher competition. It was against Washington last weekend where it wasn't so great. This weekend it certainly wasn't great. Jonah Giblin was not good today. Only lasted 3 innings and threw nearly 70 pitches to get through that many innings of work. So whether they make adjustments in the rotation or not remains to be seen. If it's even necessary for Bloomquist to make that decision, we'll see what happens. But things are certainly a lot more interesting now, especially after reaching deep into their bullpen this weekend and using up a lot of arms. They've got 2 midweeks coming up against Cal State Fullerton. That's going to kind of be an interesting thing to see how that progresses, how they manage the bullpen, and how they sort of line up who pitches when for that series. But also, you have to kind of have everyone ready to go by the time you travel to Oregon, because that's going to be an even tougher series than this one. So it remains to be seen. The back end of the bullpen was great this weekend. Owen Stevenson and Blake Pivarov were critical in locking down these late wins. It's part of the reason why that 15-3 stat that you just brought up, Ethan, is the way it is because this back end of the bullpen has been excellent. So the hope is for that to continue for Bloomquist, but ultimately we'll see what happens. And the starting pitching, yes, has been quite the concern over the last week or two.
And Cole, Bloomquist, as always in the post-game presser, saying, it's eyes ahead. We've still got lots to improve. The team seems happy, and he's kind of seeing certain aspects of the team starting to meld together the way he wants them to, but still just looking for the team to continue to develop. And there's some postseason aspirations starting to kind of come into play here. So what are your thoughts on that for the Sun Devils' postseason outlooks on things?
Absolutely. Well, a regional hosting opportunity is in the conversation after this series. That is by far the case, and we'll see what sort of comes of that. But ASU has shown that they can at least be in the conversation to host here at Phoenix Muni, which they have never done before. And it's only going to get tougher. We've talked about that. Going on the road against Oregon, having to come home and play Stanford in a series that will potentially decide how this Pac-12 race shakes out at the top, those are going to be very critical, and those are going to be much bigger tests than what we even saw here this weekend. Stanford has started to kind of play. They've looked a lot more beatable over the last couple weeks. Washington has given them a run for their money this weekend. They ultimately lost the series, Washington did, but they played a couple really close games and made it interesting. The same thing with Oregon. They were played close by Cal for most of the weekend as well. So those are the only other two teams that really seem to be in this hunt at the very top of the Pac-12 to win it. UCLA and USC are certainly in the conversation, but it's the top three of ASU, Oregon, and Stanford that really looks like that's probably going to be the trio that it comes down to at the end of this whole thing. In terms of hosting a regional, it's going to take series wins over those teams, and I think anything short of that is probably puts a little bit of a damper on their resume, so to speak. But they're going to jump in the RPI quite a bit after this series win over Oregon State, who, again, took 2 or 3 from Oregon on the road and then swept USC. Those are two teams that were playing near the top of the conference over the last month. We'll see how things go afterwards, but Oregon was also really good against Stanford. They actually won the series last weekend. If ASU is able to squeak out of with a series win next weekend, that's really going to jumpstart this whole thing. And I do think that there's certainly a potential for a conference championship and even, again, a regional host here, but ASU's really got to hunker down and make sure that they're on their P's and Q's for the rest of the year.
Well, Cole, thank you so much for all the analysis and breakdown. Arizona State gets the 12-10 win over Oregon State. They get the series win as well. He's Cole Bradley. I'm Ethan Tuttle. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much once again for joining us for another SunDevilSource series recap.